Yo, what is up everybody, it's the Great here and welcome back to another Naruto reaction video here today. And today we have yet another video by Dygoknight, and as you can tell by the title, this is Ranking the Akatsuki from Weakest to Strongest the Right Way. So folks, the ranking of the Akatsuki is one of the oldest and most famous topics in the entire Naruto fandom, rightfully so. The Akatsuki organization is one of the most revered and respected entities in all of anime, I would argue, and certainly one of the most appealing for many reasons, rightfully so. So, with their ranking, like I said, certainly being a very fun topic to discuss, a debatable topic I might add, especially at the top of the list, of course, and I'm curious to see what Daigo has to say about this, who he has at the top, who he has at the bottom, and where certain individuals will go on the list. I'm certainly intrigued. It can certainly vary from individual to individual, and I will certainly voice my agreement and or disagreement as far as Daigo's arguments are concerned. Before I begin, I know I'd really appreciate, hit that like button, turn on bell notifications to stay updated with yours truly, and if you're new and you enjoy, man, you messed with the kid, make sure to hit that sub button, because once you do, you become part of the family forever. Let's not waste any more time, screen. See what Daigo has to say about this one.
Today we're gonna be ranking the Akatsuki in terms of strength, and I know everyone and their aunts have done a video like this on YouTube, but this is actually gonna be the correct way of ranking the Akatsuki, and not the incorrect way you're gonna see around YouTube. Now, all jokes aside, subscribe to this channel if you enjoy this type of content, and let me just remind you that this isn't necessarily a list of who would win against every other member of the Akatsuki, and more of an overall strength analysis. Also, no filler characters. I'm just gonna be ranking the 10 core members in Shippuden, because that's the Akatsuki as far as I'm concerned. Number 10, the weakest member of the Akatsuki is Hidan. It's very simple, really. He says it himself that he is the slowest member of the Akatsuki. His moves are not very elaborate. He is also the stupidest member of the Akatsuki, and being dumb in a Naruto battle isn't something that's gonna help him out quite a lot. He's also very much a one-trick pony. He has one jutsu. Granted, it is a very powerful jutsu. If you get caught in it, you die. But if you know how to avoid the jutsu, it's pretty easy to handle. Also, the jutsu itself has some very specific requirements that may be difficult to attain in the middle of a fight. And any ninja with a mid-tier defensive jutsu would be able to absolutely negate Hidan's attacks, and therefore he wouldn't be able to draw any blood. Hidan lost to Team Asuma when he was fighting with Shikamaru and Izumo and Kotetsu, and then Kakuzu had to come in and just assemble him back together essentially, and they didn't really have intel in that fight, so it's not as though it's impossible to deal with Hidan's jutsu. And then he was soloed by Shikamaru in a pretty spectacular fashion, and sure that Shikamaru had prep time, but Shikamaru isn't beating anyone else in the Akatsuki with all the prep time in the world. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. And a lot of people are gonna say, no, it's Zetsu. Zetsu's the weakest member of the Akatsuki. But let's be real here. Zetsu destroys Hidan any day of the week. And I'm gonna get to Zetsu. Alright, now let's get to number 9. Kakuzu. Yes, Kakuzu is the second.
Alright, before we move on to number 9, I want to say this first. To give some credit to Hidan, and the placement of Hidan is fine, I guess. I don't think he's weaker than Zetsu, and I think Zetsu would fall to him. I mean, Zetsu doesn't ever really combat anybody. And yes, he did backstab Madara, but come on. He never engages in combat against anybody. He admits inferiority to many individuals, etc. But the point is, Hidan's defense is certainly not easy to deal with. It took one of the smartest and quite possibly the smartest individual in the verse to deduce how to exactly counter it, and he had to use a very elaborate scheme to do so successfully. Right, so Hidan certainly just isn't fodder. That's certainly not the case. His ability is troublesome, for sure. But I just wanted to say that to give some credit to Hidan, and let's continue on.
Weakest member of the Akatsuki, and many of you may be very angry right now because I am spitting facts here. And by the way, even though Kakuzu is the second weakest member of the Akatsuki, he is leagues above Hidan. So this is a pretty substantial jump in strength from the 10th to the 9th place anyway. But among everyone else, Kakuzu is the weakest. He has a powerful defensive jutsu in the stone skin, which can be countered by lightning style and just powerful jutsus such as the Rasen Shuriken. He has 5 lives, which is something good for him, but we see that they can be taken out rather quickly, and he seems to be better than Kakashi at taijutsu. And a lot of people cite that fight against Kakashi as a magnificent feat, but beginning of Shippuden Kakashi wasn't exactly the peak of his strength. Quite the opposite, in fact. Also, it wasn't as though that fight was very fair. For a decent portion of the battle, Kakuzu had Hidan's help while he was fighting against Kakashi, and Kakashi was essentially protecting Ino and Choji, who were just completely useless in the fight. So he had some disadvantages in that fight, and Kakuzu wasn't really destroying Kakashi. Granted, he would have beaten Kakashi if Shikamaru didn't destroy one of his hearts through the little plan with Hidan's blood, but Kakashi even states that he didn't use his Mangekyo and he would have used if Naruto and the reinforcements didn't arrive, and I'm pretty sure he would have beaten Kakuzu with Kamui. Can't really counter that. There's absolutely no way he can do anything against Kamui. And let's talk about Kakuzu's offensive jutsus. Well, they're just basic elemental jutsus, which are powerful, don't get me wrong, but if you want to go above a certain tier of strength in the Naruto-verse, you need more than that, and everyone else in the Akatsuki has more powerful jutsus than that, than just simple elemental jutsus. Yes, he has all of the elements, but so what? Kakashi has all of them as well. Sarutobi has all of them as well, and he's much more powerful. It's not like having every single nature transformation is gonna make you a god. But the worst thing about Kakuzu, and this is really the reason why I'm putting him in second to last place here, is because he got blitzed by beginning of Shippuden Naruto twice. 2 times in a row, Naruto was able to blitz Kakuzu with the Rasen Shuriken, and it wasn't very difficult to see Naruto.
Let's go ahead and give some applause to Dygoknight. He's actually spitting facts here. He did get blitzed. His raw durability didn't save him here. His raw durability failed. Him being the deadliest in the Akatsuki wasn't enough. So Daigo's actually spitting facts here. He was blitzed by Naruto with a slight QB amp. So, base take by Daigo. Let's continue.
Coming, Naruto used 3 shadow clones to distract Kakuzu before he blitzed him with the Rasen Shuriken twice.
Correct.
That Naruto had a very small QB amp that's practically negligible, and he doesn't have Sage Mode or anything else. That
Correct.
Naruto isn't very powerful aside from the Rasen Shuriken itself, which anyone else in the Akatsuki except for Hidan would easily be able to dodge. And Kakuzu failed to do so twice. The first, the Rasen Shuriken fizzled out because Naruto wasn't practiced at it, and then the second hit and defeated Kakuzu. And I see every other Akatsuki member here, aside from Hidan, doing much better in that fight. And you can argue that Kakuzu was starred and all that, but it was actually said that Kakuzu powered up when he fused the wind and the fire hearts within himself. Of course, people are gonna come and tell me that, oh man, he fought the 2 tails. Wow, he fought the 2 tails. 12-year-old Naruto fought the 1 tail and won. Whoa, that's such a great feat. He fought the 2 tails. Number 8, Zetsu. And I'm referring to the Zetsu that was in the Akatsuki, the original black and white Zetsu. So when we discuss Zetsu's strengths, we have to take into account the powers from both the black and the white Zetsus. And most people forget the Zetsu powers, which are not weak at all actually. Black Zetsu during the work, the same Black Zetsu that's been throughout the entire Shippuden era, was able to keep up with Mei, the 5th Mizukage, her guard of 20 or so Jonins, and then a KCM Naruto clone arrived, and Black Zetsu was still keeping up with them. He even tripped KCM-1 Naruto, and he missed the Rasen Shuriken. And we know how fast KCM-1 is. It was relative to the 4th Raikage, which was the fastest shinobi alive at the time. Black Zetsu was then only defeated by Chojuro extending his sword or whatever, and he wasn't even killed, he was able to get away. Also, Black Zetsu has wood style and a pretty powerful wood style, which is why he was able to deal with so many ninjas at the same time, and powerful ninjas at that. Can you imagine Kakuzu trying to do that? Mei was just gonna melt him like she was melting Sasuke Susanoo, and she couldn't do much against Black Zetsu. White Zetsu, the original White Zetsu, the one that was fused with Black Zetsu for like half of the entire show, he also has some very interesting powers that people just forget for some reason. Of course, that the White Zetsus that fought in the war weren't very powerful, but the original had the Spore power, that one he used in the 5 Kage Summit, that no one in the entire summit, no one could detect that. And that's a very strong jutsu. It drains the chakra from the target, and you can put it back on someone else. White Zetsu can also transform into other people, which is pretty good, especially his transformation that mimics the chakra, so you can't even tell him apart from the real person because the chakra is the same. So Naruto has to come with the bullshit power of good and whatever and feel the hatred in Zetsu, which is a little bit of an asshole, but that's how it works. Zetsu is pretty powerful, man. You shouldn't downplay Zetsu. And if you want to say, oh, he destroyed Madara, Jupidara was killed by Zetsu. Come on. It's just... If you want to put Zetsu in first place because of that, feel free, but you don't have my respect. Number 7, Sasori of the Red Sand. And yeah, sure, a lot of people are going to get mad with me because I'm putting Sasori in number 7, but it's the reality. And let me explain why. Sasori is a somewhat limited ninja. He doesn't have a very powerful attack. The most dangerous thing he has is his poison, which is very deadly, but it's not the hardest thing for you to counter. Sakura was able to counter the cloud of poison with a paper bomb. Granted, if Sasori hits anyone with a poison, they're probably gone, and if you don't have an antidote like Sakura had in the fight. I can easily see everyone else on this list that's above him being able to dodge that jutsu, and high-level shinobis being able to dodge the poison as well. He has the 3rd Kazekage puppet, which has the iron sand, a pretty powerful jutsu, but it's definitely not as strong as the original when the 3rd Kazekage was actually alive. There's just no way it's as powerful because we can clearly see that Gaara's sand in the same arc is 20 times more powerful than the iron sand. Sakura is able to shrug off the iron sand kinda easily. She's just punching away at the iron blocks and all that, and Sakura in the beginning of Shippuden, sure, she's not weak, but she's definitely not a powerhouse by any means. She is able to one-shot every single puppet she touches. She one-shots the Hiruko puppet, she one-shots the 3rd Kazekage puppet, she one-shots Sasori himself puppet, and all the others that Sasori throws against her during the summoning of the 100 puppets. And you can say, yeah, sure, man, but Sakura is very strong, and that's not a lie. She is powerful, but honestly, everyone else on this list has more firepower than Sakura has, and they would easily be able to destroy the puppets as well. And Sakura isn't exactly very fast. And sure, for most of that fight, Chiyo was actually manipulating her with her chakra threads, but there are some moments in the fight that Sakura is just fighting by herself, and she is relative to Sasori's speed, and Sakura is not a speedster whatsoever. And I'm not trying to say that Sasori is weak. He's definitely strong. He's definitely Kage level. The only Akatsuki member that's not Kage level is Hidan, but Sasori's just not as powerful as the others on this list. And for those of you who are saying now that Deidara told everyone that Sasori was more powerful than him, this is just kind of disingenuous by Deidara because it's a flat-out lie, and it's very much proven by feats. Any basic Deidara bomb could one-shot any Sasori puppet just by comparing the blasts with the punches Sakura's throwing. They're pretty equivalent to the weakest Deidara bombs, and if he tries the stronger bombs like C3 that he used against the Sand Village, he's destroying every single puppet in Sasori's arsenal.
At the same time,
if you want to see a more in-depth Deidara versus Sasori fight, I've made an entire video about it, and the link's going to be in the description below if you're interested. Number 6, Conan. And damn, man.
Alright, so let's discuss that Sasori placement. First of all, the Sakura fight isn't a very good one. Chiyo admits that he could have killed them, implying he could have defeated them, which allows us to imply that during this fight he was holding back to some arbitrary extent. He certainly was. He certainly was, and Sakura had help from the individual that probably knew him better than anybody besides himself, which was Chiyo, right? And like Daigo stated, Sakura was aided by Chiyo and her chakra strings for the majority of the fight anyway. That's certainly the case. Now, the Kazekage scaling that Daigo used, saying that he's nowhere near as strong as a puppet as he was previously really can't be proven and I think is incorrect. Sasori defeated the man. Sasori defeated the Kazekage. It's actually implied that it was easy. So why would somebody that's stronger than the Kazekage, when he was alive, utilize a weaker version of the Kazekage as a puppet? That's bizarre. That's very bizarre. And now, the whole scaling with Sakura being able to destroy the puppets can have holes punctured through it with, again, the fact that Chiyo was aiding Sakura with the chakra strings, more than likely amping her speed and most likely power as well, with chakra literally moving her around. And the fact that, again, Sasori was holding back to some arbitrary extent. This was certainly not no bloodlust to Sasori. Certainly not. This was Sasori reminiscing about his parents, reminiscing when seeing Chiyo about his childhood, and certainly having some arbitrary level of mental nerf for most likely the majority of the fight, which, again, is reinforced by the fact that he gave up at the end, which Chiyo stated blatantly. Right, so there are very relevant pieces of empirical evidence to suggest that this wasn't simply just Sasori at his strongest losing to Sakura. That's certainly not the case. And Deidara stating that he's weaker than Sasori isn't something that he's lying about. First of all, Deidara has one of the biggest egos in all of Naruto. The only time he ever admits blatant inferiority is to Itachi himself, besides admitting it to Sasori. He did that because he nearly died by Itachi's hand, right? The Genjutsu almost made him blow up himself. He saw Itachi as a god and that made him resent Itachi and resent the Uchiha. Why would he say that out of nowhere? He's one of the most egoist individuals in all of Naruto. Why would he lie about that? Some people would counter me and say, oh, it's to have Kakashi and Naruto follow him. And there's better ways to make them follow him. He could have just said, oh, Gaara's dead, and you're never going to find him. Or he could have said, I'm the only one that knows what Gaara is, and I'm never going to tell you, and then run off. That certainly would have made Naruto follow him. Certainly. The very premise for him being there was Gaara. So why would he just go out and say, oh, Sasori's stronger than me? That's not the best way to have Naruto follow him. If anything, that could have backfired, and it could have made Kakashi say, you know what? I'll follow Deidara, you go help Sakura since he's stronger than Deidara. So that train of thought is certainly questionable. So again, the empirical pieces of evidence here suggest that 1, Deidara is weaker than Sasori, and 2, Sasori was certainly not going all out against Sakura and Chiyo, by the way. People forget that Chiyo aided Sakura to a very high degree in that fight. It wasn't just Sakura versus Sasori. It was Sakura and Chiyo versus Sasori. There are many arguments to be made that Sasori wasn't going all out. Chiyo is his grandmother. Chiyo made him reminisce about his childhood. Chiyo made him reminisce about his parents. Sasori had to be mindful of Chiyo when fighting Sakura. So to downplay him based on that fight, I believe, is a little disingenuous. There's certainly plenty of empirical pieces of evidence to suggest that he certainly wasn't going all out. He certainly was not going all out. And even to the degree that he was trying, again, he was going against one of the best puppet users of all time that happens to know all of his tricks. Chiyo. And Sakura, who had the antidote to his poison. Think about it like this. He was fighting his kryptonite and still could have won, which was blatantly stated. He was fighting his literal kryptonite. An individual that has the antidote to his poison, and another individual that's his literal grandmother that knows everything about him. And he still could have beaten them. And on top of that, he was mentally nerfed. That's the reality of that fight. It's not simply, oh, Sasori got beat by Sakura, he's ass. No. No. That's incorrect. It's not that simple. And yes, Deidara is weaker than Sasori again. He's an egoist, and there's better ways to make Naruto and Kakashi follow him. Why would he go out of his way to hurt his also important ego to make Naruto and Kakashi follow him when there's better ways to do it? So yeah, Sasori is not weaker than Deidara. That's the whole point here. And the empirical pieces of evidence that I just provided substantiate that. But let's continue.
And the Conan downplay in the Naruto community
So
is
Conan
just absolutely insane. Guys, Conan is very strong. I don't know why people always put him in like 9th place, because she would definitely beat everyone that comes before her on this list. Without prep time, by the way. Conan's arsenal relies a lot on her paper jutsu, obviously. But that jutsu is actually pretty damn strong. She can produce blades and paper bombs out of thin air. She can clone herself, producing countless paper bomb clones that explode with an equal force to Datara's explosions. She was able to tag Obito, and people are gonna say, oh, but Obito wasn't taking her seriously. Yeah, sure, yeah, of course, Sasori and Kakuzu would definitely tag Obito if Obito wasn't taking them seriously. Yeah, I can definitely see that. But that's not all. Conan can fly, and she is the best flyer of the Akatsuki. And guys, people underestimate the power of flight in the universe that most people can't fly, and you can. You just have a massive advantage in any fight that your opponent cannot fly, especially if you're a long-range fighter like Conan is. She is also virtually immune to physical attacks because her body just turns into paper. It's like Suigetsu turning into water when he is punched. He doesn't really feel that, and it's the same thing for Conan. She just turns into paper and is not hurt so long as she has chakra left. So essentially, you have to drain her out completely before you beat her. Also, she was fighting against the entire Leaf Village when they attacked with pain. She was fighting the entire Aburame clan, which is one of the most underrated clans in Naruto, and she was doing just fine. Then a lot of people are gonna mention the Jiraiya fight against Conan, which was a very quick exchange, and people say, oh man, Jiraiya stomped her, but why? He spat some oil on Conan, and that's stomping her? Because look at Conan's face here. She wasn't scared at all when she was put in that position. It wasn't as though she was, oh no, Jiraiya's gonna kill me. Now, sure, she had pain backing her up, but would she have lost to a little bit of oil? I don't think she would have. And then, of course, there is the other fight, her main fight in the series against Obito, which, as I said before, she tagged him. And it's not every character that can tag Obito. Minato could, and Conan could. You know, that may be speaking something about her powers and all that. And then, of course, she uses her most powerful jutsu in that fight, the Ocean of Paper Bombs. And if you're telling me now, oh, that was prep time, man. Doesn't matter because it's prep time. Okay, but shouldn't you include how powerful a character can be with prep time in a list talking about the power of characters? Shouldn't you include that in the equation too? You can give 13 billion years to Kakuzu, and he's not gonna do anything remotely similar to what Conan did against Obito, who had to use Izanagi, which is just a cheat code in the Naruto-verse to escape. Aside from Obito, the only...
Alright, so I'll make this quick because I paused several times. That's a false dichotomy. And no, if you're going to use prep time, you got to give all of them prep time. Let's assume that they know who they're battling, and they have years of prep time on top of that. That's what Conan had against Obito. Years of prep time with billions of paper bombs to offset the timer, the sort of timer that Obito has when he phases through things. That's what she did. It took her years of prep time, it took billions of paper bombs, and it took the element of surprise for her to hurt Obito. And she still failed. So no, if you're going to use prep time, give everyone prep time, which you didn't do, by the way. So, no, you don't use that version of Conan. That's disingenuous, and that's a false dichotomy. We're talking of two completely different individuals. If Conan would have came into the fight blindly, she would have got one-shotted or sent to the Kamui dimension like that. Either way, though, I'll say this to give credit to Daigo. Conan's a very interesting character to scale. You could scale her a little higher than Hedon. I'll give you that. Maybe a little higher than that. The only problems I have so far is him using prep time for Conan and the Sasori scaling. Those are the only things I have real problems with. The Zetsu scaling's whatever. I might disagree, but it's not that serious. But so far, the list is okay. Again, the Sasori thing I have a huge problem with, and the Conan prep time I have a problem with as well. Why would we use that? Right, when it's a very specific version of Conan with a huge advantage against Obito. Let's continue on though.
The other member of the Akatsuki that would have been able to escape that would be Deidara because he can fly. So Conan takes the 6th place, very well deserved. Number 5, Deidara. I don't think people understand how strong this guy is. And he was 19 when he died. He had much more room for growth. Deidara's basic explosions are comparable to Sakura's hard punches in the beginning of Shippuden, if not more powerful. He also had much more than that. He had essentially the C3 nuke he could use to destroy an entire village with, the blast of which was comparable to a tail beast bomb, and he was dropping that pretty casually. He can also fly, which, as I said before, is an extremely advantageous feature in a world that most people can't. And we're not even talking about his most powerful jutsus. The C2 dragon, which can just spit very, very powerful bombs non-stop and also keep you flying away from the range of your enemies. The C4 Karure, which is a one-shot technique against anyone that doesn't fulfill 3 very specific conditions. Number 1, having lightning style to defuse the bombs. Number 2, being able to see the nanobombs coming your way. And number 3, being intelligent enough to figure out how to defuse the bombs. And of course the C0, which is a suicide technique, but I think it's very valid to put it in here because it would give at least a tie for Deidara against anyone in the Akatsuki with the exception of Obito. But his explosions are not everything Deidara has. He is also trained in countering genjutsu, which can be useful against a lot of different fighters. He is very fast, unlike Sasori, who was being tagged by Sakura. Deidara was able to dodge Hebi Sasuke multiple times, and we know that Hebi Sasuke is one of the fastest characters in the series by that point in the story. He can also mold his bombs into shapes that will favor him during the fight, like we saw against Gaara, where he used the centipede to infiltrate into Gaara's sand and explode it from within. His explosives can fly too. They can do all types of crazy things, and I was very tempted into putting him on 4th place. That's a very close call, but 4th place goes to this guy, Kisame. Kisame has the highest chakra reserves from anyone in the Akatsuki. He's the strongest water style user in the verse. He stomped Killer B, who was one of the most powerful characters we've seen by that point. And Kisame can essentially drain your chakra until you die and regenerate from it if he sustains any wounds. He only lost to my Guy because Guy was his natural counter. If Hirudora wasn't a physical attack, Guy would have died in that fight against a very fatigued Kisame. And that massive bubble ability Kisame has is just something else. Like, if you don't have a teleportation jutsu or some other hack to get out of there, you're probably gonna die. And now we're moving to the classic top 3, which I believe most people put those 3 in the top 3 because it's kind of obvious. We begin with the number 3, which is Itachi Uchiha. Now, I think there is a fair argument to make in favor of Itachi against either Pain or Obito, and I've made versus battles videos about these 2 fights in the past before, more in depth. So I don't think that the difference, especially between Itachi and Pain, is that great. But Itachi doesn't have as much chakra or durability, for instance. And he also doesn't have the sheer hacks that Obito has. When I compare him against Pain, I usually tend to put him in the same scenario Pain was when he invaded the Leaf Village, and I don't see Itachi doing as well as Pain did in that situation. Of course, that's because of his chakra reserves, and I'm not saying Itachi has like 0 chakra. He has a decent amount of chakra. He fought Sasuke for a very long period of time, then he stomped Orochimaru, kept on fighting Sasuke and all that. His chakra reserves are not low like most people want to say, but they're not as high as Nagato/Pain's and also Obito's. And that's what actually holds him back. And as I'm using the version of the characters that are in the Akatsuki and not Edo versions and other things like that, I cannot really use Edo Itachi here. Otherwise, it'd probably be higher than that. But still, Itachi takes number 3. I don't really have to explain why Itachi is powerful. Amaterasu Tsukiyomi. His Susanoo has the Yara Mirror and the Totsuka Blade. He's also the smartest character in the Akatsuki by far. He's very fast. He was relative to KCM1 Naruto. So all in all, Itachi is extremely powerful, and I think there is an argument to make for Itachi against Obito and Pain. Link in the description if you're interested. Number 2, Pain/Nagato, but the Pain version is the more accurate Akatsuki version because that's what Nagato uses when he's in the Akatsuki. Pain has very powerful abilities, and also he has 6 different bodies, which makes fighting against makes him pretty complicated. The catastrophic Shinra Tensei and Chibaku Tensei are very broken abilities that hit extremely hard. He also has ninjutsu absorption. His summonings are very strong. That dog summon could solo Kakuzu without much problem. The Asura path can hit pretty hard too. He can extract people's souls and resurrect the other paths of pain. He's a very powerful guy. It's not by chance that he is the leader of the Akatsuki. Well, the quote-unquote leader, because we all know the things that went on behind the scenes, the manipulation and all that kind of stuff. He beat Sage Mode Naruto after fighting the entire village for quite some time, and powerful shinobis at that. He fought Kakashi and killed him. He destroyed the entire village with that Shinra Tensei, and he still had gas to fight against Sage Mode Naruto and beat him. It was only because the Kyuubi came in and fought against Pain. He wouldn't have won that fight. And for number 1, we have Obito, which is here essentially because of Hack's abilities and all that. And it's not very fair to the other members of the Akatsuki because Kamui is exceptionally broken. Being able to phase through things and absorb things into the Kamui dimension is something that kinda negates most of the abilities in the verse. Obito is also very good at Genjutsu, and I have to assume countering Genjutsu as well. He was able to put a perfect Jinchuriki under a Genjutsu, something that should be impossible, but apparently he can. I am not the biggest Obito fan. Well, actually, I like Obito when he still has his mask. I have to put him in here. Out of all of the Akatsuki characters, the only one I can see maybe having a chance of beating Obito, and it's not a guarantee whatsoever, that one would be Itachi. All the others would just absolutely get bodied by Obito. Even Pain even more so, because his most powerful jutsus wouldn't work against Obito, and Obito would be able to absorb each pain into the Kamui dimension until none is left. Of course, that wouldn't really solve the problem because he would still have to go after Nagato to actually win the fight. Obito is more capable of fighting against more powerful people than any other Akatsuki member. And I'm talking about Orange Mask Obito here, which is his Akatsuki version. If we were talking about White Mask Obito or Jubito, that would be even worse for the Akatsuki. Obito is more powerful than the rest, but he is still somewhat relative to the rest of the Akatsuki. It's not as though Obito is a god. We see that there are ways to fight him. Conan almost killed him. So it's not as if this guy is invincible. He himself thinks that if Itachi knew all of his secrets, somehow he could have killed Obito even after he was dead and all that stuff. Let me know in the comments what you think about my ranking of the Akatsuki. And I know this is the only correct ranking. If you disagree with me, you are incorrect. Subscribe to this channel and like this video to help me out. Thanks.
Alright, there you guys have it. I just want to get my thoughts on that. So, the top 3 of the list were certainly the best part of this video. I agree. Sekitachi would lose to Pain, and Pain would lose to Obito. It's narratively implied, and empirically, that's just the case. Obito just has better feats. But, top 3 was well done. I actually agree with Daigo there. And now, back to the problems. Sasori and Prep Time Conan. I disagree with that. If you're going to use Prep Time Conan, you're going to have to do that for all individuals in the Akatsuki. That's what you're going to have to do. And Sasori was just skilled very disingenuously. Very disingenuously. Just with Daigo just ignoring the blatant empirical pieces of evidence that were presented for him. Right? Such as him being mentally nerfed. Such as him fighting his literal kryptonite and Chiyo and Sakura. The literal antidote to his poison is involved in this fight. An individual that knows everything about him is involved in this fight. An individual that is his family member and the direct ancestor to his parents is involved in this fight. He's mentally nerfed. He gives up at the end. More than enough to conclude that he's holding back to some arbitrary extent for the majority of the fight. He's certainly not bloodlusted. Certainly not. So, all in all, Sasori should be above Conan, I'd say, and certainly above Deidara. He should probably be 5th. And now the Conan prep time scaling is just a false dichotomy. Conan without prep time and Conan with prep time are 2 completely different individuals. And another problem that I do have with Daigo in general, in this video specifically, is him giving very bold claims and not backing them up. Him saying, oh, Deidara with his most powerful ability would defeat anyone in the Akatsuki except maybe Obito. Can you prove that? Or are we just supposed to take your word for it? That's a very bold claim to make. Very, very bold claim to make. Why isn't he higher then, if you think he could beat everybody in the Akatsuki with that ability? That's bizarre to me. It's very bizarre. Or saying Konan, even without prep times, is number 5 in the Akatsuki. Can you prove that? There's no feats for her, so how could you prove it? In general, I have problems with people speaking in absolutes, especially when there's no empirical evidence to even remotely suggest that claim being true. This is very bizarre to me. Why make that claim? You can't prove the claim. You can't prove it. That's like me saying, oh, I can fly. Believe it. Can you prove that? Can I prove that I can fly? No, I can't. It's not provable. Hence, it's falsifiable and it's negligible. It shouldn't even be considered. It's like a scientist going to the scientific community and saying, oh, I have this hypothesis. It's absolute. And they ask, okay, where are the observations? Where's the experimental data? Oh, I don't have any. You're supposed to just take my word for it. The scientific community would laugh his way out of the community. That's not the way logic and deduction works. You're supposed to back up your premise. That's how it becomes a theory and possibly even a fact. Or a law, so to speak. You can't just simply say these things and expect us to take your word for it. I've always had a problem with it. It's not even just Daigo, it's just in general. I have a problem with that. That's disingenuous. But yeah, folks, that's my thoughts on the list. The list was decent besides those holes. Besides those few problems that I listed throughout this reaction and right now. But overall, the list was alright. I don't have problems with most of the placings here. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you agree with this list? Am I off and Daigo's correct? Whatever the case may be, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I always read them, and I'm intrigued to see what you guys' thoughts are out there. So please leave them down below. But that's going to wrap it up, and I'll catch you in the next one. This is Jay the Great signing out. Peace.